This is a trigger warning for everyone who is out there listening to this. If you get triggered by murders or anything of that nature, please exit the video. Go watch another video of mine. If not, let's talk about Ted Bundy, okay? Who was Ted Bundy exactly? And how was his life? Why did he start murdering? We're going to talk about things like that. Well, the general gist of Ted Bundy, he was a serial murderer who was also known as a rapist and necrophiliac in the 1970s. He killed at least 36 women, and that's at the least amount. He was put in the electric chair in 1989 in Florida. We're going to start at the beginning from there. His mother, who we will call Louise, was 22 years old and unmarried when she had Ted. Ted's father was unknown, but there was speculation that some guy named Lloyd Marshall was his father. There was also another guy who was speculated, whose name was Jack Worthington, but there was other rumors that his father was his grandfather. Anyways, in 1951, Louise married Johnny Bundy. Louise and Johnny had several kids together. It was reported Ted didn't have respect for Johnny. He was too uneducated and working class. In 1970, when Ted was accused of his crimes, his mom didn't believe the charges for years until he confessed. Let's get deeper into that. Ted was born in Burlington, Vermont on November 24, 1946. Ted was Louise's secret shame, as he was an illegitimate birth and humiliated her religious parents. Later, Ted was raised as an adopted son of his grandparents and was told Louise was his sister. A few years later, Louise moved with Ted to Tacoma, Washington. Then she married Johnny. Ted grew up in a working-class family. Had an unusual interest in early age. He was fascinated by knives and dark things. Ted was smart. People would say he was shy and bright, but he didn't do good with his peers. As a teen, Ted became a darker person. It was said he liked to peer into other people's windows and wanted to steal things from people. Skipping years ahead, Ted began a 6-year relationship with Elizabeth. I cannot pronounce her last name. I am sorry. We're just going to call her Elizabeth. In 1969, they met at a Seattle bar. Elizabeth was a single mom to a young girl, and she also struggled with alcoholism. Ted took care of her. In her words, he was warm and loving. Elizabeth started to suspect Ted's crimes in 1974. He had odd behaviors. He would deflect her concerns. Elizabeth went to the police in secret because of her suspicion of Ted's involvement in local murders. Police did not believe Ted was the killer. They remained together but grew distant when Ted moved to Olympia in the following year. Elizabeth again went to the police in 1975, but this time with evidence that helped her arrest Ted. Ted admitted to Elizabeth over the phone that he tried to kill her and couldn't resist when he felt, quote, his sickness building in him, unquote, she wrote later. Elizabeth broke ties with Ted. We're going to backtrack a little bit here. Ted graduated from the University of Washington in 1972 with a degree in psychology, of all things. He was accepted into law school in Utah, but he would never earn his degree. While at the University of Washington, Ted fell in love with a woman from California. She apparently had everything he wanted, with money, class, and influence. When they broke up, he was devastated, and many of his later victims resembled his ex. Ted started becoming more outwardly confident and active in different matters around the mid-1970s. Ted confessed to 36 killings of young women across America, but experts believe it was closer to 100 or more. Ted followed a gruesome pattern when killing people. He would rape his victims before beating them to death. There was a debate when he originally started all this, but most people say around 1974 is when he started. Many women started going missing around the Seattle area There was stories that the victims were seen with Ted before going missing. He lured his victims by pretending he was injured and asking for help, then getting them in his car. In the fall of 1974, when he had moved to Utah to go to law school, but women started to disappear. Within the following year, he was pulled over and police searched his car. They uncovered a lot of tools, such as a crowbar, face mask, rope, handcuff. He was arrested for these possessions, which the police started to link him to sinister crimes. Ted was arrested in 1975 for the kidnapping of Carol DeRange, which is one of the few women to escape. His original sentence was 1 to 15 years. In 1977, Ted escaped twice from prison. The first time he was in prison on a murder charge for the death of a Colorado woman, which Ted, instead of getting a lawyer like a normal person, he acted as his own in this case. In the trip to the courthouse library, he jumped out the window, but was captured 8 days later. The second time, he escaped in December out of a hole of the ceiling of his own cell he had made. He went missing for 15 hours, which gave him enough of a head start. Ted made his way to Tallahassee, Florida. Ted broke into the Chi Omega sorority house at Florida State on the night of January 14, 1978. He attacked 4 female residents, which he killed 2 of them. Ted then, on February 9th, kidnapped and killed a 12-year-old named Kimberly Lee. He got quickly connected to the 2 Chi Omega murders. He bit one of the bodies and it matched to Ted. About February 1980, Ted got married to Carol Ann Boone, which she was a mother of 2. Ted and Carol dated before his initial arrest. In front of the judge, Ted proposed to Carol, which she accepted, which made a legal marriage in Florida. Ted and Carol met 6 years earlier when they were both in Olympia, Washington, working on the same job at the Department of Emergency Services. Carol gave birth to a baby girl in 1982 named Rose, which she named Ted as the father. Eventually Carol realized Ted's crimes and divorced him 3 years before his execution. In trial, Ted fought for his life, but was convicted and spent 9 years on death row. On January 24, 1989, around 7 a.m., Ted was executed in Florida State Prison electric chair. Outside, crowds cheered and set off fireworks while he was being executed. He was cremated and his ashes were scattered on the Cascade Mountains of Washington, where he murdered 4, maybe